Sarean Sat Sri Akal, another week, another one show hosted by me and provided to you by Recognize One. ਆਪਾਂ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਹਫ਼ਤਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਤਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਕ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਆ ਜੋ ਅਕਸਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਬਚਪਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਕੁਛ ਚਾਂਸ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਮਜਬੂਰੀਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਐਂਡ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਦੇ ਕੇਮ ਫਰੋਮ ਕੰਟਰੀਜ਼ ਸੱਚ ਐਜ਼ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਐਂਡ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਮਜਬੂਰੀਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਸੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੁਕਮ ਦੇ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਜੋ ਬਣਨਾ ਸੀ ਬਣ ਗਏ ਪਰ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਜੋ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ a very interesting topic and that is sport. ਅਕਸਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਖੇਡਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਿਹਤ ਲਈ ਐਂਡ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਟੀਮਾਂ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਕਰਨੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਨੱਕ ਚੱਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨ ਵਾਲਾ ਕੰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹ 'ਚੋਂ ਪੈਸੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਦੇ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਲੱਤ ਬਾਂਹ ਟੁੱਟ ਗਈ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੀ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਐਂਡ ਟੁਡੇ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਸ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਿਊਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲੀ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਖੇਡਦੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਰੀਅਰਸ ਬਣਾਏ ਆ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਰੋਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਖੇਡ ਕੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲੀ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਜੋਬ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਔਰ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਿਹਤ ਲਈ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਬਾਕੀ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸਾਨਸ ਇਨ ਨੀਡ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਟਰਾਂਸਪੈਰੈਂਸੀ ਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਵੀਡੀਓਜ਼ ਦਿਖਾ ਲਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਜੋ ਪੈਸੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਲਾਏ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਲਾਏ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਬਾਕੀ MLS ਦੀ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ 'ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨੌ ਸਕਰੋਲ 'ਤੇ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਾ ਵੇਰਵਾ ਮਿਲੇਗਾ ਕਿ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਰੇਜ਼ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਖਰਚੇ ਗਏ ਅਤੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਫੈਮਲੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਗਏ ਸੋ anyone who wants to see a transparent account of where the Kisans in Need money is going and has gone can go onto the MLS website running on the scroll and you can see where your money has gone, where it's going to and the families that are in need, how many we've helped and how many we're planning to help. As week ਦਾ show ਆਪਾਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਜੀ by not showing you somebody who plays football or is a boxer or is a wrestler, all of that is coming later. ਆਪਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ show ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ unusual profession in sports and ਉਹ ਹੈਗਾ football referees. Now there's not a lot of Asian football referees around but we've managed to grab one of them who referees in the championship. So ਆਪਣਾ interview ਦੇਖੀਏ ਜੀ ਭੁਪਿੰਦਰ ਗਿੱਲ ਨਾਲ who's a referee for the football league and let's go and have a chat with him. ਹੁਣ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਵਾਇਆ ਜ਼ੂਮ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਕਸਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਫੁੱਟਬਾਲ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਲੇਅਰਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਕਨਸੈਂਟਰੇਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ we concentrate on managers and coaches but hardly anyone looks becoming a referee no one wants to become a referee but here's the one person who had just started refereeing when I first met him and now not only is he a teacher but he's also a championship level referee. Bhupinder Gill, thank you, welcome to the show. Sat Sri Akal.
Sat Sri Akal. Thank you, Harjap, for having me.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey for you. I mean, when we last spoke, you were just starting off about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And now we see you in like championship matches and like, you know, you could all the big players, all the big teams, the guys that will be playing in the Premiership next year. It's been quite a journey. And do you think that's did you know taraqi hui, or you think you've actually been slow on that?
To be honest, that's 10 years is it's quite a fast progression in terms of the referee's route. I mean, I've been quite lucky that's happened for me, but again, you know, that's mainly through the support that I've had. Obviously, with my dad being there as a support network for me, and my brother being there as a support network for me, it's been a bit of a fast progression. So. It's just one of those things. I don't know whether I've got lucky or not, but thankfully I'm in a position where I am now.
But do you think like with not a lot of Asian referees, I don't know any Asian referees apart from you, your dad, and your brother, to be honest. And I always keep an eye out, and I just can't see any, especially like not in the Premiership. And do you think that it was lucky for you, or do you think that they made an active sort of the FA made an active sort of decision, no, we've got to help Asians along, because I don't see any more Asians in the refereing route. I've seen a few more footballers, but not a referee de vich ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੋ ਕਈ ਆ anyone else.
There is one or two others, but yes, I mean the FA obviously do look to help and push the ethnic minorities up the ladder as quick as possible, but at the end of the day still you need to be first of all good enough at the end of
Yeah.
the day. Not just going to push me because I'm an up and and they're not going to say, yeah, Chal,
Yeah.
we'll push you up as quick as possible, but you don't know how to blow a whistle or lift a flag,
Yeah.
you know. But where I got lucky is obviously I had a role model,
Yeah.
you know, and I could go and watch my dad referee or be a linesman or assistant referee on, you know, football league games, and you you grow up in that environment and you think, oh my god, that's something that I want to do now, and because you've had that close experience with it. Whereas normal Asian families up in here, sometimes, you know, they don't encourage their children to get into sport, you know. So when I interviewed you, you know, I remember when you interviewed me 10 years ago, I said obviously the parents weren't educating us enough to get into sport. So that's why I was lucky that my dad was already into sport, and he's obviously encouraged us and he knows what the benefits were of it. But now with me, 10 years later, I'm married with kids, and now I'm trying to get my kids into sport because I know the importance of it. And hopefully now, as you said, you know, we're seeing a lot more up and in football and coaching, etc. That's because my generation now know what the importance is, because they've all played football. We all watch football. We all love the game, or we love sports in general. We are more now encouraging our kids to get into a sport. So hopefully in the future, you know, 5-10 years down the line, hopefully there's going to be a huge influx, should I say, of up and in sport. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
Ravinder, why do you think it's taken so long? It's taken 30, 40 years. I mean, and considering like in proportion, 100 up and towns, they care like Nottingham, Leicester, and like Birmingham, London. Look at all these big cities and the proportion of Asians that live in there. We're quite strong and in population. But when it comes to representation amongst teams or referees or coaches, we're hardly there. I mean, I can hardly name 5 to 10 Asian players in all of London in the top sides. Yeah, I don't know. And like in Leicester, I can hardly name Hamza Chowdhury. I can name one. Hannah, Birmingham, I can't think of any.
Yan
Hagal, Swansea, America.
Yeah, that's Swansea.
Yeah. So I can't. It's still like as if 30, 40 years, but they're not trickling through as much as they should. So is there hope, or is there been slow progression? And do we need to do more? Do we need to get you guys out there more in the forefront?
It's a very, very slow progression from what I've seen anyway, growing up. And I think now with there being such a big push on ethnic minorities, or the lack of ethnic minorities in sport, now I think there's a bigger push because of what's happening with social media, etc. as well. Like, you know, for example, now currently I'm working with a small group of people. I'm an ex-Premier League referee as well, where we've just created a social media platform on Twitter and Instagram, where the idea is that we are just going to try and promote ethnic minorities and inspire them to get into refereeing, specifically in football. So we're trying to make a massive push, but I just don't know why it's taken so long. You know, as I said, you know, with our culture, it was all about kind of being there and all about getting them into
doctor, lawyer, accountancy, all of that. Yeah.
And now, you know, so like I've known so many very, very, very good football players, up and football players, but as soon as you get into that lifestyle of going out, clubbing, university, and all sorts, it goes to a different direction, because they have their parents probably weren't sports people, or you know,
didn't understand what avenues to go down.
Exactly. And now there's such a massive support network. Now you see so many coaches, up and coaches. You know, like even my dad now was obviously an ambassador for the FA. He's trying to now encourage, you know, younger people to get into refereeing or just getting into sport in general. And obviously he's more of a recognized face, because obviously he was the first turban wearing Sikh in the football league. And hopefully now with me and my brother, that we get pushed on the social media aspect or out in the media, where people can see, oh my God, you know, there's one of us, you know, who's out there. Maybe that's something that I want to do, because everyone's into sport. Everyone loves playing football, for example, but you've got to be a very, very special talent to be making it as a professional. But that's not to say you can't make it as a coach, you can't make it as a referee. You know, the progression for me, if I can do it in 10 years, get from starting as a referee on a Sunday league pitch to get into the championship within 10 years, why can't, and I started when I was 23, 24, why can't somebody who should be starting at the age of 13, 14, 15 get there, in 10 years? It's just about, how much you love football, because all you got to do is learn the rules of football, learn the laws of the game, and it's just then to apply it. So we've got to promote good stories. People need to know like what I do on a daily basis, in terms of going to the gym every day, eating right, not drinking, not partying, etc. It's just about having a different lifestyle.
Ravinder, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good luck with the future, and hopefully we'll see you Ronaldo hona na like then red card but until then appa janne ha. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you. Take care.
Sat Sri Akal.
Bye bye. Sat Sri Akal.
की कड़ी ना देखन दे ओखी कड़ी ना देखन दे अपना विरद समाने अपना विरद समाने अपना विरद समाने।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਆ ਸਾਡਾ ਲੋਨ ਸੀ IDBI ਬੈਂਕ 'ਚ 3.5 ਲੱਖ ਰੁਪਏ ਦਾ, ਇਹ ਮਿਡਲੈਂਡ ਸੁਸਾਇਟੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੰਪਲੀਟ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ, ਤੇ UK ਦੀਆਂ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਇਹ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
Hanji, so through this video, you can see where your money from Kisans in Need is going to and how many families are still in need of support. So ਇਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਉਸ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਜੋ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਫੈਮਲੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। So thank you once again ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਡੋਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਆ। Also to follow that you can go on our social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਵੇਰਵਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਊਗਾ, and as we help families you will get all the information about that. ਬਾਕੀ ਜੀ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ to ਆਪਾਂ a favourite sport of this country, ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਫੁੱਟਬਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ probably one of the most famous Asian players ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਜੋ ਖੇਲ ਰਹੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ। He's played for Liverpool, he's played for West Brom, and he now plays for Swansea, and he's played for England. So he's played for England at his level. ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਯਾਨ ਡੈਂਡਾ। ਸੋ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਆ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ। So now I'm grateful to be joined by someone who I first met when he was a kid, and he was playing with West Brom. He then went on to Liverpool. He's now at Swansea. He's played for England. And I think at the time, he was only one of the few Apane that I knew who was playing football. But now we all look up to him. All the kids look up to him. Even the elders look up to him. And saying that he's really made it in life. So I'm very glad to introduce and a big Sat Sri Akal and welcome to Jan Dender, who plays for Swansea. So hi Jan, Sat Sri Akal.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me, and I'm excited to talk about what we're going to speak about today, and I'm just happy to be here and be able to share my story with everyone.
Jan, now I've seen you grow up as a kid, and I saw you with your dad and your uncles, and at that time you was at West Brom. Then you really hit the big time. You went to Liverpool. I mean, just talk us through it as a kid, uh, as an Asian kid. Did you get encouraged to explore your talent? And how was it? I mean, how did your mates take it? How did your family take it? Did you have to live away? Let's go through it. It's a great story.
Yeah, so from when I was for 3 or 4 years old, for as long as I can remember now, when I was walking, I was always playing football. It was something I loved from a very young age, and my family that I grew up with were always into football and always playing football. My dad and my two uncles, mom's brother and my dad's brother, were always playing football. So growing up, every weekend I would be either watching football or playing football, watching my dad or my uncles play, and obviously having a kick around when I could do so at half time or on the side of the pitch. I'd always have a football, and I grew up really all I knew was football. So I fell in love with it from an early age, and I was good at it. I spent so much time playing football that I actually got really good at it, and that's what I loved, and that's what I wanted to do from when I started walking. And then I joined a local team when I was 5 years old, and just played for them with my friends, and like I said, just enjoying it, and that's just what I wanted to do from a very young age. So I went into a team when I was 5, just a local team called Tipton Town, which was by my house in Tipton. And I just played there with friends, and like I said, I just love football, and I was really good at it. And then when I was about 6 or 7, a few professional teams came in for me and just said to come and train with them and see how I got on really. So I would train with Aston Villa, Wolves, West Brom, Birmingham, all on different weekdays, and just keep practicing really with some of the best 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds in the local area really. So I was doing that for a few years, and then at the age of 8, I had to decide which one of these teams I wanted to sign for. I had to pick from Wolves, West Brom, Birmingham, and Villa, and at the time, me and my dad, who were obviously really close, thought that West Brom would be the best place for me. And I think I made the right decision. They had some amazing coaches that have now gone on to be first team coaches or first team managers. So I had the I had the pleasure of working with some of the best coaches in England, not just in the Midlands, but in England as well. So I went from 8 years old up until 14 at West Brom, obviously working with such good coaches, and feel like I was progressing nicely, and I knew I was one of the better players in my age group growing up. And at the age of 14, I had the opportunity to move on again, and I could have gone to Liverpool or Arsenal because of the progress I'd made at West Brom. So at 14, I had a one in a lifetime opportunity, really, that not many people get to sign for Liverpool or Arsenal. And again, me and my dad went to Liverpool and Arsenal to see which was going to be the best for the next step in my career. And together we thought that Liverpool was going to be the best option. We thought that's where I had a pathway, and that's where I was going to improve the most. And at 14, I signed for Liverpool, which is obviously one of the biggest clubs in the world. And when you have an opportunity to move there, you don't wanna miss it. So at 14, I had to leave my family home in Tipton because my little brother had just started school, and it weren't fair for him being so young, only at like 7 or 8 years old, to have to move to a different city completely. So as a family, sister, mom, dad, and little brother decided that it's time for me to move out of my family home, which was a
At the age of
massive shock.
14?
Yeah, so I was 14 and I had to make a decision. I wanted to play for Liverpool so bad. I had to leave home, and that was it. It just happened, and that was one
Mate,
of the
I'm
sacrifices
45.
that.
I'm 45 and I still live with my dad.
Well,
You
that's
know,
the thing. It was tough. I had to make a decision. It was either move home and play for Liverpool, or stay in my comfort zone. Really, stay at home and stay at West Brom. And I was mature enough to make a decision and say, yeah, I'm ready to leave home and go and play for Liverpool and follow my dreams. And luckily, I had such a supportive family that allowed me to do that. It was difficult for me, but now I'm older. Looking back, it must have been very difficult for my mum and dad to let a 14-year-old boy move
his
move
own,
100
basically.
miles away from home. Yeah, so obviously at the time I couldn't drive. I had to go a couple of weeks without seeing my family, and sometimes even months. So, but it was
Yeah,
worth it, and I think
at the time, when you was at West Brom and Liverpool, were there any other Asian kids in your age bracket or training, or was it just you?
you know what, when I was at West Brom, there was five of us actually who were Asian. There was me, there was another Indian boy, there was a Pakistani boy, a boy from Iraq, and a boy from Kazakhstan.
Right.
So in our team there was actually five of us.
Okay.
Uh, so there's me now who's actually still playing. The Indian boy is playing in the Welsh Premier League for
Okay.
Connors Key, and the other three they're not playing anymore as far as I'm aware.
Oh, right.
And obviously they were really good at the time playing for West Brom, and I thought they was really good players. But for them not to be playing anymore is a big shock, because I think all of them were very good and deserve to be still playing football. But it's a
And at
tough
Liverpool?
journey.
At Liverpool? Were
So
there
when I
any?
went to Liverpool, there was a boy who's actually still one of my really close friends. He was from Yemen, and he was playing in my age at Liverpool. But like again, he's another one who's not playing football anymore and has not made it professionally. But me and him are still really close friends, and he's gone on to do other stuff. He went to university and stuff like that. So he's doing well for himself, but not in football anymore.
I mean, how did you feel when you got an England call up? When you got asked to represent England at your level, and how did that feel? 'Cause I think you'd be one of the very few Asians who actually played for England at any sort of level.
Yeah, I think of course at the time I was young and I didn't really think too much about me being Asian and me being one of
Yeah.
such few people. But now looking back on it, I am super proud of being one of very few Asians play for England, let alone in the professional game. So yeah, I am super proud of playing for England and being one of the first Asian players to actually represent England at a good level. So yeah, I am super proud. But at the time, I was just enjoying football. I was good at football, and I just thought that like this is part of the journey to represent your country. But now looking back on it, it's such a unique experience, and not many people in the country get to actually do that. Let alone someone who's Asian.
You talk about being encouraged by your family, but did you ever get discouraged by any other people? Like, I mean, we hear the narrative about Asians aren't good enough to play football. They haven't got the physique. They haven't got the genetics. They haven't got the speed, or they don't have the talent. We grew up hearing all of this, and it discourages a lot of people. Were you ever discouraged in any sort of way?
Yeah, of course. When I was growing up, there would be a lot of people who would say bad stuff to me because I was Asian, in terms of stereotyping, saying, "Oh, he won't make it professionally because no one else is doing it," or "He's better off suited to this job or that job." Whereas for me, I had such a supportive family in my mum and dad that would always say to me to just ignore the hate, and if people are saying racist comments or stereotyping you, then just use it as fuel to prove them wrong, and that's what I did, because I had such supportive family that loved me and allowed me to follow my dreams. I didn't really care too much about what other people thought, as long as my mum and dad was proud of me and was letting me do what I wanted to do, then that's all that mattered to me. And in the bigger picture, when someone would say stuff to me that would probably upset me or hurt my feelings, I would just use it and try and channel the anger to prove them wrong. And being young, I'd try and like score a goal or just something to try and get one over on them.
Jan, thank you very much. Good luck. Hopefully, we'll see you in the Premiership soon. And hopefully, we'll spot you one day down Soho Road, cruising in your motor, showing that you haven't forgot the
Yeah,
ends.
definitely. I'll still come back often, so you'll probably see me driving around soon. I'll probably be with my dad, actually. He's the driver and I'll be the passenger. But yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. And good luck with your career. Right, with me now is someone who's a chair of an organisation whose badge you've seen all over the place. If you watch football matches, you've seen it on the billboards, you've seen it on the sideboards, you've seen it on players' football shirts. You know the phrase, and I'm so glad to introduce today's guest, who is also chair of that organisation called Kick It Out. So, welcome to Sanjay Bandari. Sanjay, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for inviting me.
Sanjay, tell us about what Kick It Out is. We've all seen the badge, we've all heard the phrase. Tell us exactly about what it does and how you became to be involved with it.
So, Kick It Out's a charity. It's football's equality and inclusion organisation. It was founded in 1993 at the end of the first season of the Premier League. It's funded historically by sort of four founding members who are the Premier League, Football Association, the Professional Footballers Association, and the English Football League. Originally founded to really focus on tackling racism in English football. So it was originally founded as Let's Kick Racism Out of Football, and really as a campaigning organisation. And since then it's evolved, deals with all the forms of discrimination and promoting inclusion. So I've been there for 18 months as the chair. And we're doing a strategy and a governance review, and really we do, as we've come out of that, we really focus on three things, which are reporting and advocacy and public policy. We do some guidance and education work, and we do talent programs to help football keep its promises to diversify. And we cover, really, as a charity, our beneficiaries are underrepresented or minority communities in football. So it isn't just dealing with racism, it's dealing with anyone who falls within that category.
Why is racism still prevalent in football? Why are we still having this conversation? You know, since 1993, the campaign's been there, it's, backed by all the major leagues and organisations. Why, until this day and age, if you look at Twitter, sometimes it's a cesspool of racism against footballers. Recently, like Raheem Sterling, Marcus Rashford, and even our very own Jan Danda suffered abuse in it. Why is this still prevalent? Why is this something that has not been cracked down on, either in the stands or on the pitch even?
Well, you could say, why are we still dealing with racism in society? Not just over the last 28 years since this organisation was founded, but for the last 300 or 400 years in which racism has existed in the current form in which it is, because racism as a form of discrimination is relational. It depends on who the dominant majority is in any particular society. So there will have been, forms of affinity bias and racism going back thousands of years. So the reality is, actually, when you look at this over a time horizon, you look at this over 40, 50 years. I can remember going to football in the 1970s, and two things can be true at exactly the same time, which they are, which is football and is society better from a race relations perspective now than it was in 1974 when I started watching football? And the answer to that is unquestionably yes. It is much better than it was in the mid 1970s. But is it worse than it was in 2012? Or, is it worse than it was 5 years ago? And the answer to that is also yes, because progress doesn't move in a straight line. It goes in ebbs and flows. And whilst things overall over the last 50 years have got better, actually over the last 5 to 6 years, they've definitely got worse. And that mirrors what we're seeing in football, mirrors what we're seeing across the rest of society. Society is becoming more polarized, more tribal, maybe becoming more like the way football has always been, which is very fiercely tribal. And we're seeing those sort of divisions in society, and it plays out even more acutely in football, because football is kind of by its nature tribal. And the sort of what we're seeing with social media, obviously it wasn't invented 50 years ago, it wasn't an issue then, it's certainly an issue now, is just the new, I suppose, battleground for that kind of behaviour. And it sort of exacerbates whatever's already there, and sort of it's like the real world. It's like real life but on steroids. So yeah, and what we've also seen is the Home Office hate crime statistics. They've increased year on year for the last 5 years, and so what we're seeing in football mirrors exactly what we're seeing in the rest of society.
Sanjay, thank you very much for your time.
No problem.
Welcome back, everybody. अक्सर जो ਆਪਾਂ sport ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਦੀ ਆ, we talk about sport. We think about the typical sports such as football and cricket, but ਆਪਾਂ ਹੋਰ sport ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੂਟ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ। ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ Indian sports ਦੇਖੀਏ, ਦੇਸੀ sports, then we go into kabaddi, we go into wrestling, and ਇੱਕ ਜੋ sport ਜੋ UK ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈਗੀ, ਜੋ ਆਪਾਂ western world ਵਿੱਚ ਦੇਖਿਆ, ਜੋ ਇੰਡੀਆ 'ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਇੰਨੀ prevalent, ਉਹ ਹੈਗੀ ਜੀ ਬਾਕਸਿੰਗ, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੜੇ ਦੇਸੀ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਮੁੱਕੇਬਾਜ਼ੀ ਸੱਦ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ। It says what it does on the tin, so it's there, it's blatantly there, ਮੁੱਕੇਬਾਜ਼ੀ, what a name। ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਜੋ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਕਾਫੀ ਕਾਮਯਾਬ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਔਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਜੋ ਬੱਚੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤੀਆਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। I'm very glad to introduce now a young Punjabi boxer ਤੇ ਈਸਟ ਲੰਡਨ ਤੋਂ। ਵੈਸੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਨੈਫਿਊ ਵੀ ਆ, ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਡੈਡੀ ਜੋ ਹੈਗੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਭਰਾ ਵੀ ਆ। ਆਪਾਂ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੀ ਗਰੋ ਅਪ ਫਰਮ ਅ ਵਿਲੇਜ ਇਨ ਰੇਨਮ ਇਨ ਐਸੈਕਸ, ਐਂਡ ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਮੁੰਡਾ ਹੈਡਲਾਈਨਸ ਮੇਕ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਫॉर both reasons, for revolutionary spirit and also for his sport. So Inder Basi, ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ।
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ, how you doing uncle?
I'm going very good, I'm very good। and ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਦੱਸ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਬੈਕਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਜਾਣਦਾ, ਪਰ ਥੋੜੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੋ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਡੈਡ, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਤਾਇਆ, what they're famous for, ਉਹ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਲਈ ਮਸ਼ਹੂਰ ਆ, and also ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬੈਕਗਰਾਉਂਡ ਕੀ ਹੈ?
So as you said, I'm a professional boxer. I've been professional for just over 15 months, but I come from a family of athletes. So ਜਦੋਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਸੀਗੇ back in the 60s, they used to play kabaddi in the pen, they used to do wrestling, but when they come to England, Muhammad Ali was a big name, and they was inspired by Muhammad Ali, and they took up boxing.
Okay.
That was back in the 60s, and he was the first Asian boxer.
Wow.
All those many years ago. And then from my babaji, my taya, my dad, they all took up boxing. My dad used to wrestle. He used to wrestle freestyle wrestling at a national level. My taya was a really good boxer. And now obviously I'm third generation, I'm a professional. But obviously I've still got family members who are still in boxing. I've got one of my uncles, Jumbo. He's an Olympic referee. So on an Olympic, one of the highest stages in amateur sport is the Olympics. He's a referee in that. You know, my dad and my taya dono kabaddi khele sige for many years. Born and bred in England, but they played kabaddi internationally, and now I'm trying to follow their footsteps.
When we look at role models, so ਹੋਰ ਸਪੋਰਟਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਥੋੜੇ ਬਹੁਤੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਪਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਕ੍ਰਿਕਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਰੋਲ ਮਾਡਲਸ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਬਾਕਸਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ I mean Prince Naseem, Amir Khan, ਇਹ ਤੋਂ ਬਿਨਾਂ I can't really think of how many sort of role models we got.
No, that's right. From an Asian sort of heritage, there's not many boxers. The couple that we do have, you know, Amir Khan, Prince Naseem, but as Indians we don't really have many boxers. Growing up it was always difficult to try and relate to a boxer who was from an Indian background, who had similar experiences, but there was none. But hopefully, you know, I can change that, and I can inspire the youth and lead the way and set the standards.
Now you've been through quite a revolutionary case, है ना? ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੋ ਕੇਸ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਾਫੀ revolutionary ਹੋਇਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਬਾਕਸਿੰਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਦਾੜੀ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਬਾਕਸਿੰਗ ਕਰਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੰਦੇ। ਕੇਸ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰੱਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ, ਪਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦਾੜੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਰੱਖ ਸਕਦੇ। ਸੋ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਾਕਸਿੰਗ ਕਰਨੀ ਕੀਤੀ, ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਬਜੈਕਟ ਕੀਤਾ, ਬੋਰਡ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ you can't box with a beard. So tell us a bit about that.
Right, so in amateur boxing across the world, so you watch the Olympics, you're not allowed a beard. In any amateur boxing competition across the world, even in India, You're not allowed any
दाढ़ी
facial
नहीं
hair.
रख सकते
दाढ़ी नहीं रख सकते.
Okay.
ਤੁਸੀਂ professional ਹੋ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਸਕਦੇ. You can do kickboxing, karate, any other contact sport. You can keep one. But amateur boxing, you were never allowed. And ਇਹ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਚਿਰਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਤੁਰਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ.
जी.
ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ when I was little, when I was 12, 13, it didn't affect me. I didn't have facial hair.
Yeah.
But when I was coming of age, 16, 17, although ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ, I can't shave now. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦਾੜੀ ਰੱਖਣੀ ਪੈਣੀ.
केस रखनी है.
Exactly. So ਅਸੀਂ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ. We had Lions MMA from the Midlands. There was a few other people, a solicitor. We had Dr. Harvey, who's a doctor. He was a medical side.
जी.
And we got together and put a case forward to the British Board of Boxing Control. And, we had a Singh who done the legal side. We had the Dr. Harvey who gave the medical side.
Yeah.
And then I was obviously the case study.
Okay.
Where there was no other Punjabi Sikh boxers in the country.
जी.
They needed a kind of case study. Say, listen, we can bring this rule forward, but who would it benefit?
Yeah.
Is there any Sikh boxers? And so I was the only one. And so I was used as a case study, and it didn't only benefit Sikhs, but it benefited everybody. Everybody keeps a beard nowadays. It's fashion.
Yeah, it is.
But with that overturning of the beard ban, we've seen a lot more young Punjabi Sikh fighters coming through now. Again, we never had any. But there's a lot of youngsters who are taking up boxing because there's nothing stopping them now.
How hard is it for Asians to get into boxing? Asians on ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖੀਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ karate ਸਿੱਖਦੇ ਆ, kickboxing ਕਰਦੇ ਆ. Like, we've got good inspirations for that. Cash to Flash Guild for a long time. And, we've got other inspirations. But how hard is it for you? I mean, we've grown up seeing white boxers, black boxers. We've never grown up seeing some Asian boxers until recently. So how hard was it? Did you know it was going to be hard to get in there? Were there a lot of obstacles in your way?
Definitely, definitely was a lot of obstacles. I'd go to where I made a ball pitch and obviously I couldn't box with a Jura. They would look at me and laugh. They'd never seen a Sikh boxer. A lot of amateur boxing is dominated by travellers, Irish families. They'd never seen a thing. So they would look at you with long hair. They would make remarks, but it was just something that I had to sort of take it and move forward. I had to, like I said, I had to lead the way. So I was used to it. It was tough at times, For example, I went to 4 national finals I've been in. But I've never won one. I've always lost on a split decision, Janaki.
Right.
I've always lost, But it was tough, but it was something, I had my family backing me. I had my family support. So it was something that I'd done, and hopefully I'd done it successfully.
I mean, even if you look at the whole setup, right? So the boxing boards, I don't think there's any Asians in there, right? Referees, Bokat mein dekhiya. Basically, your tabbar is like Asian boxing, right? So I don't know any referees. Any promoters?
Nothing. No.
Asian or nahi dekhe. So it's all geared up against you, right?
I was the only Indian doing it, not even Apana, but I wasn't only Punjabi, I was the only Indian doing it.
Right.
Like I said, with the beard ban being overturned, there's a lot more youngsters coming through, but at that time I was the only one.
Now, I know your dad and your dad, they used to play kabaddi.
Yeah.
And now they've taken that seva on because your Babaji is president at East London Gurdwara, Hana. So, tell us a bit about what you do to encourage other kids to get in and what they do.
So, at the 2 Gurdwara in East London, we run a kids class. We teach them boxing, wrestling and kabaddi.
Yeah.
It's all free of charge. Our only rule is,
Yeah.
And then come train for free. So every Sunday is at Bark and Godan. And obviously because of COVID, we've had to shut down, obviously.
Yeah.
But we have like 30, 40, 50 kids every week.
Wow.
And we teach them everything for free, like I said, boxing, wrestling and kabaddi. And with that, they become closer to their guru.
Yeah.
They come Gurdwara on a Sunday evening. And secondly, it gives them the self-confidence. A lot of we get a lot of parents who bring their kids in, and they've been bullied in school because they're young Singhs or India they don't know the English language. Loads of different things. And when they come to the country, they make friends. Yeah. They make people their age who've had similar experiences maybe. And then after a few weeks, they gain confidence in themselves. We don't teach them how to street fight, but we give them the confidence to stand up for yourself if
and
you
defend
need
yourself.
Exactly, yeah. And so the main idea is, and second, defend themselves. That's a very big thing. And, once they do that to a certain level, they can then go on, if they want to compete at a bigger, higher level, they can go to bigger clubs and bigger competitions, but they get the basics from the Gurdwara.
Wow. And where do you hope to go with your career? I mean, where do you hope to go now? I know you train hard.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You've got fights coming up soon as well.
Yeah, next month my next fight, but I hope to go all the way to the top. You know, like I said, I'll be the first up to do it. British champion, European champion, hopefully world champion one day. There's nothing stopping me. So you know.
What message would you give to ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਮਾਪੇ ਆ ਦੇਖਦੇ out there ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਕਿ ਬੱਚੇ want to learn self defense or boxing ਸਿੱਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ or you know ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ and mum and dad are saying ਨਹੀਂ ਯਾਰ ਤੇਰੇ ਸੱਟਾਂ ਲੱਗਣੀਆਂ and all that you look all right to me and ਨਾ ਕੋਲ ਮੁੰਡਾ ਤਾਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੇਰਾ ਦੰਦ ਵੀ ਸਹੀ ਆ ਸਾਰੇ so I mean what message would you give ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ message ਕੀ ਆ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ
The message I'd give to the parents who are kind of reluctant to send their kids in is just go for it, because a lot of people watch the Rocky films and they think sada move party and every fight you have, you know, nakatoti and that, down the tot in there, but that's not what boxing is. Exactly, boxing's not that. Boxing's an art form. It's good. It keeps you off the streets. It keeps you down a straight and narrow. Young kids, just go for it. If the kid wants to box, you know, boy or girl, it's not just limited to boys. We teach the girls as well.
Oh, we teach girls.
We teach girls as well. We have about 15 girls. If you want to box, go for it. There's nothing stopping us. The only thing is stopping us is but that's not how it works. That's not how boxing is. It's not a street fight. It's an art form.
It's more about not getting hit.
Exactly. The art of boxing is not getting
hit.
But people judge it off Rocky films and the Rocky film or
the old films, the desi ones.
Exactly, yeah.
Inder, thank you very much for this. We're wishing you the best in your career, and dekho people like Inder are role models ਕਿਉਂ ਇਹ ਨਵਾਂ ਕੰਮ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਫੀਲਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਤਾਂ hopefully more will follow in that field and ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਾਕੀ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਐਡਵਾਈਸ ਲੈਣੀ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ you want to send your kids training ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਈਸਟ ਲੰਡਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਕਲਾਸਿਸ and all over the country ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ like Lions MMA Huddersfield ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੋ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਸੈਲਫ ਡਿਫੈਂਸ ਸਿਖਾਇਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਐਂਡ ਸਿਖਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਵੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਜੋ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਸਿੱਖੋਗੇ ਕਰਨੀ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੂਜਿਆਂ ਤੇ ਰਿਲਾਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਸੋ thank you Inder for coming on. Now we're going to see a clip of you in action. So ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮੁੱਕੇ ਵੱਜਦੇ ਐਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੁੱਕੇ ਮਾਰਦੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਿੰਡ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਸਨਿਆੜ ਹੇੜੀ ਜ਼ਿਲ੍ਹਾ ਪਟਿਆਲਾ ਸਰਦਾਰ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿਸਾਨ ਮੋਰਚੇ ਤੇ ਟਰੈਕਟਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਕੈਨਿਕੀ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨ ਤਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੌਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਸੀ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਮਾਤਾ ਜੀ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਅਡੋਪਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਬੱਚੀ ਅਮਨਦੀਪ ਕੌਰ ਤਾਂ ਅਮਨਦੀਪ ਕੌਰ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹਨੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਟੀਮ ਨੇ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਹਫ਼ਤੇ ਬ੍ਰੈਂਡ ਨਿਊ ਸਕੂਟਰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸੰਯੋਗ ਨਾਲ ਤਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਆਪਾਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਰਸੋਈ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਆਪਣੇ ਬਾਥਰੂਮ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸੰਯੋਗ ਨਾਲ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਟੀਮ ਨੇ ਸਲਾਹ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਬੱਚੀ ਅਮਨਦੀਪ ਕੌਰ ਦੇ ਆਨੰਦ ਕਾਰਜ ਦੀ ਪੂਰੀ ਤੋਂ ਪੂਰੀ ਰਿਸਪੌਂਸਿਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਲਵਾਂਗੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸੰਯੋਗ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਸੇਵਾ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ ਜਿਹਨੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਇਹ ਸੇਵਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕੀਤੀ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
You've heard from them, and we've heard from players, and we've heard from participants in sport. But one segment we haven't heard from is fans. So we haven't heard from the fans. But luckily, ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੋ fan ਵੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, agent ਵੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ. So we've got Shivani and her dad Raman. ਜੋ ਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, welcome to the show.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ।
Raman, tell us, we know you're a big fan. Manchester United fan.
Yeah.
You go to all of the games, and recently I've seen off your Facebook, Shivani goes as well. She goes to all of the games. I don't know many dads who take their daughters to the football games,
Sure.
and because we're obviously still worried about the sort of banter that you get and the sort of things that you hear at football grounds. So why did you decide to take Shivani to games?
Well, to be honest with you, first and foremost, she's my best friend. So which I think is probably unusual for lots of fathers to say, but it's something football's always been instilled in me from a young age.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest with you, I don't take no differentiation between a daughter or a son. So I'm blessed to have my daughter, and I think it's a great experience for my daughter to have socially as well as obviously regarding sport itself. So I take it as a blessing.
Shivani, when you first went to a football match, you must have thought, oh my God, you roll up and what's all this crowd knows going on?
Yeah.
People talking here and talking there.
Yeah.
And you probably, was it a bit overwhelming? And how old were you when you first went to your
I think I was around 6 or 7 when I went to my first ever match at the Old Trafford itself.
Yeah.
It was a bit overwhelming at first, but I think obviously when you have your dad by your side, you know,
Yeah,
he's reassuring you, going, it's fine, just trust me. First, it can be a bit intimidating being especially the only young Asian female there.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, looking around and seeing there's not that many Asians, but there's not that many young female Asians especially. And I think I'd like to say I'm an advocate for young female Asians especially who would like to go to a football match or just be involved in any sort of sport. As I think nowadays in this community, it can be a bit overlooked.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, people think that young females can't go to the football or not like football, and they're only allowed to stick to certain things. I think that, you know, luckily with my dad and stuff, you know, he's always been quite open and said, you know, if you'd like to go into football, you know, you can, whether that's playing football itself or just even being involved in media or just watching it or anything like that.
Wow. There's a distinct lack of brown faces in Asian football. And in, you know, in the management, in coaching, on the boards, on decision makers. What do we need to do to correct that? I mean, we've heard what the FA said they're doing, and we've heard what you know, a lot of players have experienced themselves. But as a fan, and you're a football agent now yourself, so what do we need to do to correct that?
I think there's quite a lot to do, even as a community in itself as well. And I think the views of for obviously generations have changed, thankfully. And I'm pleased to say I think that those generational changes are sort of coming into fruition. There's still plenty of work to do, including obviously for organisations. Again, you've just mentioned one there. That there's other organisations that are involved. There's quite a bit of work still to do. And I think there's always been this thing that Asians can't necessarily play football, or they're not good at this and they're only good at cricket.
Yeah, genetically they're not going to make up, they're kamjor. Or...
Absolutely. But, you know, we've seen that that's actually not true. I won't know every single player, but of course there's been representatives that have played. And
we had one on here today, Yan, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, Jan's a shining example, and long may it continue. And I hope that many more make that breakthrough. But of course, those barriers still need to be broken. And unfortunately, as much as we don't want to admit it, there has been, and probably still is at some levels, a bit of institutionalized racism. And that's something that it's not just our Asian community that needs to help to break those barriers, but I think other communities as well.
Shivani, you talked about media and about Asian women in media. There's a lot more now that I see on TV, on BBC, on Sky Sports, and obviously a lot more Asian faces. Talk Sport as well on the radio station. You don't see the face, but obviously you hear the voice. So surely that must encourage you now that there's a lot more willingness to employ Asian females in these sort of fields, right?
Yeah, at first, like going into sport itself or like football, I was always quite nervous, and I always said to Dad, you know, I'm a girl. Like, you know, what are people going to think of me at school and stuff, you know? It's not like the norm as such.
Yeah,
you know,
it isn't.
To like for a girl to go to football matches every week with her dad and enjoy it as much as I do and post on social media, you know, my experience. I've been a bit more open to the idea of going into football a bit more, whether that's via social media, TV, anything like that. I think it's always nice to see, especially other Asian females or just Asians in general, getting involved in the love of football.
And I think the inspirations can come from lots of people. I mean, Rashmi Chowdhury, you know,
That's right, yeah.
I'll openly admit, I think she's done a fantastic job.
Brilliant.
And again, she's a great source of inspiration for, you know, South Asian females. There's plenty of others as well. Bella Shah, of course, on
Bella
Sky
Shah.
Sports. So it's
And
encouraging.
even from the other communities, like Alex Scott.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So she's great.
And she's got great knowledge, by the way, Alex says. And again, her knowledge of sport, football
is
itself is second to none. And it's quite refreshing to see that obviously the females are making that progress, and long may it continue.
As a football agent, what do you intend to do to help our community and the kids from our community to break these barriers?
Well, of course, one of the roles is to identify talent that we believe is going to be, you know, beneficial not only just to themselves but also to our company as well. So I'm grateful for the work that I've been doing with DRN Sports, and of course, I would like to, you know, be able to tap into a market which I believe is still large.
Untapped.
Absolutely, and it's still at large. And of course, there's many more hurdles to overcome yet. But the breakthrough can easily happen. But of course, it's going to need the likes of myself and maybe others as well to actually identify the talent and give them the opportunity. By the way, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be just always at the Premier League level. It could be Championship, League One, League Two.
Depending on ability.
Absolutely. So the calibre of player, obviously, we are interested in. We need to have that calibre of player. But of course, from my own personal perspective, I'd gain so much satisfaction if I could, of course, unearth a couple of players from the South Asian or Indian heritage. I'd be absolutely delighted to do so.
Raman, Shivani, thank you for coming on.
So much.
You've been brilliant. It's good to see a father and daughter in such tandem in relation to sport. You don't see that often. And so anybody's out there who's a very good football player, don't worry, Raman's going to spot you and he's going to make you into the next Ronaldo. So only if you're good enough.
No pressure.
So no pressure at all. So thank you very much. ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਜੋ ਸੀਗਾ ਇੰਨਾ ਹੀ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਕਿਸਾਨਸ ਇਨ ਨੀਡ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਅਪਡੇਟ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਦੇਖੋਗੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਪੈਸਾ ਜੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਸ ਦਿਨ ਰੇਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਔਨ ਦਾ ਹਿਸਟੋਰਿਕ ਨਾਈਟ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਲਗਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਐਂਡ all the transparency is there. Also along the scroll you will see the MLSS website address where you can go and see where your money's gone to via, you know, photos, via proper transparency accounts. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਗਏ ਆ as weekly ਇੰਨਾ ਹੀ ਸੀਗਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ and hopefully you enjoyed the show and hopefully ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਚੈਂਪੀਅਨਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਪਲੇਅਰਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਫੈਨਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਏਜੰਟਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਐਂਡ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਐਂਡ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਪੁਸ਼ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਕਿ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਰਟੇਕ ਕਰੋ ਐਂਡ the message tonight is if you love a sport, if you enjoy what you're doing, go for it. You can make a career out of it like all these people have. So please don't give up on your dreams. Don't feel you have to crush them and do something else. Follow them. And parents, encourage them. You know, we went through different times, but, you know, we all, as parents, we say one thing, that I don't want my kids to go through the times that I went through and the difficulties I went through. So now's our chance to make a difference. Let's walk the walk as well as talking the talk. ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕਿਸਾਨ ਦੀ ਨੀਡ ਦੀ ਅਪਡੇਟ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋਗੇ ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਬੁਲਾ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ